Okay, we'll share one copy. No problem. Take that.
Yeah, we'll share. More?
Salut. Salut. No, no, don't.
Very well, Council.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
Honorable Commissioners.
Is that?
Sorry.
Didn't hear you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Honorable Commissioners.
Yes.
Did you say I should go ahead?
Yes, to call the
Next witness, all right.
next witness, yes.
I call Mr. Jobate,
Jobate.
Deputy Managing Director, Ports Authority.
Okay.
She's done with letters.
For the time being, I
Mr. Usman Jobate.
want to give the other one a chance. It's all right. There will always be a next.
Mr. Jawade, just reminding you that you're still on the oath, and then you can have a say.
Mr. Jobate, you were required to produce a copy of the documents of title for the Ports Authority land in Banjul. Do you have it?
Yes, ma'am.
Right, can you produce it? Yes. That's a photocopy?
Yes, that's a copy, ma'am.
It's not a certified copy. We may require it to be certified, but it's a photocopy,
Yes, ma'am. It's a copy.
not the original. Very well. What sort of document is it? Is it conveyance? Does it say conveyance, lease? What does it say? What sort of title is it?
It's an instrument approved by testimony that it's a piece of land
Okay.
belonging to the Gambia Ports Authority called Transfer of Assets, dated 1972.
All right. What does it say at the very top of the first page?
This transfer is made this 31st day of December 1974 between the government of the Gambia by its Minister of Works and Communication, Sir Aliu Suleiman Jag, herein after called the government on the one
All right.
part, and Gambia Ports Authority acting by its Managing Director, Babukar Male Sala, herein after called the authority on the other part.
All right. Thank you very much. Can I have a look at it? Okay. There is a serial registration number.
Yes, ma'am.
Number 2 of 1975, volume 10, CD. It's a very good copy. Mr. Chairman, may I apply to have admitted document produced by the Gambia Ports Authority as titled, serial registration number 2/75, volume 10, CD, dated the 31st December 1974, as titled to the Gambia Ports Authority lands in Banjul. Transfer of assets document.
Date 17.
Sorry, Council. Maybe you can look at this document
Yes.
and determine whether it is complete, because I do not see the signature.
The signature page.
Yes,
Can I have a look at it
Of any of the parties, in fact. Yeah. The parties are government of the Gambia, acting by Sir Aliu Suleiman Jack of the one part, and Boubacar Malen Salah, managing director. I can't find any.
Okay, let me take a look at it.
Maybe it's stuck somewhere. I don't know.
I have here on the Salih Suleiman Jack, hereinafter called the government, on the one part, and the Gambia Ports Authority, acting by its managing director, Babukar Male Salah. I think your eye skipped a word. Hereinafter called the authority on the other part. So the signature page is the one I think is probably missing.
It seems to be missing.
The signature page, yes. You will. It looks like you didn't photocopy the whole document, because the second page of the first page is missing.
Okay, ma'am. I'll check for that.
And please, when you come back, bring the original so we can compare it.
Okay, we'll bring the original.
Okay? Yes, the signature page is missing. It's an engrossment.
It's missing. That is very
Engrossment. We will also summon the Director of Lands, because it should be in their records. It's registered, no, the Registrar General should have it also. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay. We will require that you, can you give it to him, please? Give it back to the witness. You're coming back on Thursday on something else. Please bring it with you.
Yes, ma'am.
The complete copy with the original, so that the commission can examine the original.
Very well, ma'am.
Mr. Jabati, I would like you to look at exhibit MS-64. These are photos admitted, tendered and admitted with regard to the ferry Barajali. Do you recognize any of those photos or what they depict?
These photos are showing hull structures of a vessel, the underwater area, and engine room compartment, and deck areas.
Of a vessel. Do you recognize that vessel?
No, ma'am, I cannot recognize this vessel.
All right. Mr. Jobate, at the time that the ferry Balajari was handed over to the International Milling Corporation, which became the Gambia Milling Corporation, was any record or photo kept of the state of the vessel at the time?
Yes, ma'am, we have some photos.
You have some photos of what the vessel looked like, what
Yes,
the
ma'am.
ferry looked like.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, who took the photos?
I have a photo from one of the engineers working at the ferries at the time by the name Sadibu Barrow.
Is he still working?
Yes, ma'am. He's still
Where
in
is he
ser-
working now?
He's still in service at the Gambia Port Authority ferry
At the
service.
Gambia Ports Authority. Okay, let's see, have your photos. But we may require him to come in case we have questions for him
Yes, ma'am.
regarding the circumstances of those photographs.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Let's have the photographs. How many photos?
It's one original, and I made another copy of the same photo.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, may I apply to have these photos admitted? Well, the original I think is fine. The original admitted. Do you know what year this was?
According to Mr. Barrow, he said it was in 2006, prior to the ferry being withdrawn from service, for engine repairs to be done on it.
It was withdrawn from service.
Yes, for engine repairs, ma'am.
Where was it withdrawn from?
From the crossing point at Farafenya, where it provides service.
Right, thank you. That's enough.
photograph allegedly of Barajali ferry said to be taken by Sadibu Baro, still employed by Gambia Ports Authority. Admitted mark SC 32.
Mr. Jobati, at the time this ferry was borrowed, did you see it yourself?
No, ma'am.
You did not see it. Okay. All right. We will send the appropriate summons to Mr. to the appropriate. All right. You were also required to produce whatever documents you have about Michaela Construzioni, a company that was allegedly doing some work at the ports and that had received about $2,034,000 from the JNPC account. Do you have any information from Ports Authority regarding Michaela Construzioni?
Yes, ma'am, we do.
Who are they?
It was a company that we were written to by the Office of the President in 2014, January, to grant them access to resume works that were commenced at the Banjul Ferry Terminal.
Who had commenced those works?
According to the letter, it says Michaela Construzioni, but we were aware of their presence before we were engaged officially.
You mean they were already working?
Yes,
and when you received the letter, it was for them to resume work?
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Do you have the letters?
Yes, ma'am.
What exactly were they doing there?
They were doing piling works on the extension of a concrete platform that was constructed by the GPA for use by two ferries as a landing site.
Which two ferries?
Al Jamdu and Kalsal.
Are the ferries that you gave evidence here could not be utilized?
Yes, ma'am.
So what happened to this company?
Michaela were doing some construction works at the concrete platform, as I explained earlier. But sometime work stopped during 2014, and there was a series of correspondence from the Office of the President to the Ports Authority requesting our input in terms of assessing the progress of works that were done by Michaela with a view to honoring a claim that Michaela had submitted for advance payment.
Okay, you have all those documents?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, you were telling us about the works. Were the works completed?
No, the works were not completed. So our involvement was to give an opinion as to the progress of work, what was achieved, and the materials that were on site. And we did an assessment with a view to helping the Office of the President determine or verify the claim that was submitted by Michaela for advance payment.
That's all you know about it?
Well, we produced a report and sent it to the Office of the President.
So were they paid? You don't know?
Not to our knowledge, but what happened later in 2016, around June, we were written to again by the Office of the President in copy, requesting the Solicitor General to give advice whether to terminate or to continue with the works. So our response was that we are not involved in the design, we don't know the scope of works, we don't have any bill of quantities, so it will be difficult to give an assessment as to whether to continue or to terminate. But then we had done an independent survey based on experience we have carrying out similar works and gave our opinion as to the progress of works that was achieved by them and the materials on site.
So what happened after that?
Our advice was for the Office of the President, for Michaela to be engaged prior to any determination of how to proceed. So the letter we sent to OP was also already honored and acknowledged, and we wrote to Michaela at their known address with telephone contacts, both in Italy, in Gambia, and in Senegal, but the letters were not responded.
So when did Michaela leave the Gambia?
Work actually stopped in 2014. Since 2014, there was no work at the site.
All right. Have you put together all the documents to which you referred?
Yes, ma'am, they're all.
So what's happened to the works?
The works are stopped, and there was some rolling equipment in terms of hydraulic power packs, vibrator hammers, tipper trucks, concrete mixers, and there's also some few prefab concrete slabs, some hollow pipes, metal hollow pipes, steel bars, and they were all used in the construction works. Actually, about 20 piles, marine piles, were already embedded in the sea as an extension of the platform.
So did some other contractor finish the works?
No, the works are stopped since 2014 to date.
No, so these materials that you mentioned and these equipment and trucks, what about them? What happened to them?
The construction equipment, some of them have been rolling out, especially the rolling stock. We got a letter in 2016 also from one Mr. Jabi, claiming that they have been given a power of attorney by personnel of Michaela Construction, that we should not allow anybody to remove any items or materials from the site without their prior knowledge.
So are the equipment still there? All these materials that you mentioned, are they still at the ports?
Some are there, but a good part of the rolling equipment, particularly the tipper trucks, they are no more at the site.
What happened to them?
They have been removed.
By who?
Not to our knowledge, because that site was totally manned by them. They had their own security, their own gate access. So even gaining access from our staff to the site was difficult.
Who had custody of the site?
Michaela Construction. They had personnel deployed at the site.
So isn't it part of Ports land, Gambia Ports Authority land?
Well, it's part of the ferry terminal premises.
So what steps okay, let's have those documents first, I think. Tell us what documents you have.
It starts with a letter we received from Office of the President in January 2014, requesting us to allow Michaela Constitutioni to resume work at the Banjul Ferry Terminal. Subsequently, we had obliged with the request and also done some slave meters for electricity, because they were also requested for us to provide them with electricity and water. So we provided a slave meter at the site.
You provided a what?
Slave meter, so that there will be whatever consumption reads.
Can you spell that? I don't think You provided what?
A slave meter. It's more or less like we do an extension to our meter reading,
slave
so that
meter.
whatever they consume can be read off the meter for their own settlement.
I understand.
Yes, we did that, and we also have a letter from NRA responding. We are in copy, though it's addressed to the Secretary General, with some invoices from Michaela Constitutioni.
NRA is what?
NRA's response to the progress of works.
What is NRA?
The Ministry of Transport, Works and Infrastructure, National Roads Authority.
So they were involved in this?
Well, the same letter that was written to us requesting for an update on the progress of works was also addressed to them. So they replied to the Secretary General and also copied to us, because they were joint addresses.
Okay. Go on.
Yes, and they also, in their response, they made mention of the contract that existed in September 2013, but the contract, however, is not attached in their report. But they gave a BOQ, progress of works, and that the contract was for 27 million euros, excluding the supply of 2 ferries, valued at 8.8 million euros, but that was not part of the 27 million works contract.
27 million euro?
27 million euros, according to the document from the NRA. And also a payment schedule, depending on how the works advance, and some photo images of the works that they were supposed to do along the mooring points, the dolphins, and forecourts of along the River Gambia. That's the heading they gave to the project.
So they were supposed to build different platforms.
different platforms, forecourts, and landing facilities along the River Gambia. And there were 2 invoices for payment also copied by NRA in this letter from ministry from Michaela Constitutioni for 1.5 million euros being claimed for advance payment.
What is the date of that letter? The claim for advance payment. Or the date of the invoices, if you...
Two of them have no dates, but there's one with the 1 million. It's dated 28/03/2014.
28 March.
28, yes, ma'am. 03/2014,
All right.
and it's attached to the letter from the Ministry of Transport.
Which is dated?
The letter from the ministry is dated September 2015.
Okay.
And there's also a status report with photo images that we have done and submitted to Office of the President, given what works were found on the site and an estimate of the value of the works and the materials that were on the site.
All right.
Subsequently, there were also letters from the Office of the President addressed to the Solicitor General,
Which you
Aegis
mentioned.
Chambers, requesting for legal opinion as to termination or continuation, and also addressed to us for a meeting at the Office of the President, the 3 parties, that is the Minister of Justice, Minister of Transport, the Ports Authority, and the Office of the President, to chart the way forward on how to move with the project with Michaela, whether to terminate or to continue.
Did you attend such a meeting?
We attended one meeting, and that was the last.
What was the decision about this project that was outstanding and in respect of which substantial sums of money had already been paid?
Well, we were not officially engaged when work started at the site.
No, when at the meeting,
At the meeting,
was it discussed?
The discussion centered around the need to, as shareholders, to pool our resources and see how we can advise on to move forward with the project with Michaela, because apparently there was a stall in the works.
As shareholders of what?
Stakeholders, that is Minister of Justice, because it
No,
involves
no,
some
you
legal
said
issues.
you as shareholders. Did I-
Stakeholders.
Stakeholders, okay. All right.
Minister of Justice to give a legal opinion as to whether to proceed or to terminate with the implications therein. Minister of Transport being a party that I think was aware about the contract that existed, and also the GPA, because the works were done at the ferry terminal premises, which belong to the Ports Authority.
So what was the outcome of that meeting?
The meeting could not come to any conclusion, so it was scheduled for a later date, and in the interim, it was overtaken by developments, because these were in November 2016.
All right, that's the last letter you have.
That's the last one.
Since then, no action has been taken.
No, unless lately there's also a letter from the Office of the President that there's a party that had sought the intervention of the Office of the President with a view to resuming the works again. And the same line of action they had taken was to advise that we engage Michaela so that we can go back to the drawing board and really know what was the scope of works, the bill of quantities, and also what the project objectives were for, so that we can really give an opinion.
I'm surprised, though, that the Gambia Ports Authority, owning that land, is not taking a greater initiative in this matter. The equipment are on your land, they're on the ferry side. As you said, they've been disappearing. So no steps have been taken by GPA?
As far as I know, ma'am, there's a letter from the Office of the President asking us to engage Michaela, as I mentioned earlier. We've done that at their known address, but the letters came back. There was no response from the letters, because the contacts we had from them was an address in Brusubi, Then we had 2 contact numbers, one in Italy and one a Senegalese number. So the letters, I doubt whether even they were delivered because the address there is nobody occupying the residence.
Let's have the documents, Mr. Jobati.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, may I apply to have admitted documents concerning Michaela Construzioni in connection to BB52, which is a statement of account of Gambia National Petroleum Corporation Company Limited from Sky Bank.
correspondence between Office of the President and Managing Director, Gambia Ports Authority, re authorization of Michela Costruzioni, M-I-C-H-E-L-A, sounds Italian. The second one is C-O-S-T-R-U-Z-I-O-N-I, SRL, to resume works at the Banjul Jetty commencing 15th January 2014 and ending 16th November 2016, and related documents. Admitted Mark SC 33.
Mr. Jobate, the building of landing sites for ferries, jetties, isn't that the responsibility of Gambia Ports Authority?
Leasing of land.
The building of jetties, landing sites for ferries. What do you call landing sites for ferries, anyway?
Yes, it's part of the ferries premises. We just call them slipways or landing platforms or mooring points, jetties. It depends on the structure which is there.
It depends on what?
The type of structure, landing facility. What we just call them in general, landing facilities.
Isn't that the responsibility of the Gambia Ports Authority to build those facilities?
Yes, ma'am.
Ordinarily?
Yes, ma'am.
Were you at any time, well, I suppose you have said so, you were not at any time involved in the transaction that occurred in relation to the building of these platform that you mentioned?
Not at any time, ma'am.
Do you know whether Ports, NRA, National Roads Authority that was mentioned, or Ministry of Works were supervising Michela Costruzioni?
Well, according to the letter we received from the Minister of Transport, the one I said dated 2015, September, in that letter they did mention that they had the supervising role to supervise the construction works.
Or were they not on the ground supervising?
Not to our knowledge.
This is within your premises?
Yes, ma'am.
Was there anybody on your side supervising?
No, ma'am.
Or monitoring or whatever?
Not at all, ma'am, because there was a perimeter dividing the existing ferry terminal that we're using and the site that Michela were doing construction works.
There's a fence?
There's a perimeter fence, ma'am.
Who built it?
The perimeter existed during the previous construction works that ports were doing with a company called Sincospa, with the intention that the platforms would be used by the ferries Aljamdu and Kansala.
You had started your own works
We had
before
done,
Michela?
Yes. So Michela, they just came and did extension of a concrete platform that was already built by the GPA.
What I don't understand, last time you were here, or one of the times you gave evidence here, that these particular ferries, is it Aljamdu and Kansala, were unusable.
Yes, ma'am.
So what is this, all this thing about building ferries and jetties and platforms for ferries that were unusable anyway?
Well, at the time that the ferries were delivered in Banjul in 2012, the decision at the time was that because of the depth of the ferries, they could not use the existing landing bridge that the other ferries were using. And the ferries were single door, meaning vehicles would head in and back out, or back in and head out. So for that reason, they had to build a separate type of landing facility. And that warranted the decision then to build concrete platforms and also to protrude in the water in search of depth, because the shoreline was shallow.
So Gambia Ports Authority undertook to do that?
The concrete platforms, yes, ma'am.
And you did?
Yes, we did.
So why was it necessary for Michela Costruzioni to do something else?
Yes, because after the construction works of the concrete platforms, it was realized that the ferries cannot still land at the platform.
After spending how much?
The one in Banjul and Bara is in the region of $80 million.
The rest were not built.
Other two platforms were built in Transgambia between Bambatenda and Yilitenda, also in the range of $70 million.
150 million.
In that range, ma'am.
And the ferries could still not work.
No, ma'am.
Okay. And it seems Michaela also received, at least from the record we have so far, another $2 million. And
Well, not to our knowledge, ma'am.
yes. Okay. Well, you are coming back anyway to about this Gallia. That's what is called the Gallia investment.
Yes, Gallia are the Greek partners.
The Gallia investment.
Gallia Holdings.
All right. We'll expect you on Thursday. You've been summoned. The GPA has been summoned on this investment, which all the corporation, many of the corporations seem to have put money in.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, those are the questions I have for Mr. Jobate on Michaela Construzioni. You might have other questions.
Mr. Jobate,
Yes, sir.
according to your act, you are supposed to be an autonomous port.
Yes.
Do you have any autonomy in managing the port?
Yes, to a certain degree, we run the affairs of the port with the governance structure that is in place. We have a line ministry we report to and a board of directors.
Okay. So when you say fair degree, it means negligible?
No, no. The ferries were transferred to the Port Authority in 2001 by government directive to provide management and financial support. But it's a legal entity of its own.
Okay. So now, you believe the invitation of Michaela Construction was on the back of your demonstrated lack of expertise in building the landing site? Because if you spend $150 million and still they cannot dock, does that not beg for some help from outside? Or were there other reasons why they came? Can you enlighten us?
Well, as far as we know, when Michaela came, we were not engaging them directly. They were coming apparently with some soldiers and, doing some site visits at the site. And the next thing we knew was that equipment started rolling in because there's a perimeter fence dividing the existing ferry terminal and this site that they were doing work. So they had the area totally to their control and they were just started driving pipes. But the information we have is that they were intending it to be used by the Aljamdo and Kansala ferries.
Yeah, but prior to the advent of Michaela, you had the chance to do what they came to do. You
Yes,
just didn't do it well. Or am I wrong?
Well, the platforms did not achieve the desired objectives because the ferries could not dock at the concrete platforms that were constructed.
So they were built without the requisite knowledge of what was required? Or, I mean, what was it that went wrong?
Well, it went through all the contractual stages in terms of the tender, the design, but in actual fact, because of the hydrodynamics operating in the area, by the time the platforms were done, the silt has already started piling up in the area again. So
You chose the wrong contractor.
Well, I could say...
There has to be a reason. There's no theory here. They did it well for a reason, they did it wrong for a reason. What
No,
went
the platforms
wrong?
were done according to design.
According to?
Design.
So the design was not right. That's why they couldn't dock. I'm trying to find out why Michaela had to come.
Well, the design of the platforms, I cannot say it's not right because they were given a specification and they constructed based on the specs.
It's $150 million
Yes, I understand.
without the desired goal.
Yes, indeed.
So at what point would you accept that something went wrong?
Well, the ferries were brought in and then something had to be done to adapt them to use the facility on the shoreline to dock. And because of the landing bridge we had, and the ferries were not designed for that, so the management came with a design for a concrete platform. But in the end, it didn't achieve the desired objective.
Mr. Chairman, your witness.
Okay, so what you are saying in effect really was that the ferries were, what's the name of, what are the names of these ferries by the way?
Al Jamdu and Kansala.
Right. And you can say truly that they are useless now.
Yes, they have not been operational since they were deployed.
I use the word useless. Is it wrong to call it useless?
Well, they have no use, sir.
No use, yes.
Yes.
Now, so what you really want to say is that these useless ferries were brought into the Gambia without first determining that there were landing facilities.
Correct.
That will be all.
But just to add on that, can you clarify, was GPA involved in when the ferries were purchased?
The GPA's involvement was as a part of the government shareholding with the Greek partners, because there was a joint venture agreement between the government of the Gambia and the Galia holding on a 55% Galia, 45% Gambia. So the 45% Gambia government holding was shared between Gambia Ports Authority 45%, Social Security 45%, and Minister of Finance representing the government 10%.
Okay, I guess we'll wait for Thursday and then maybe get a full understanding.
Sorry, one question. To be fair, I want to know, who brought these ferries into the Gambia?
The Greek partners.
The
Greek partners, Galia holding.
Greek
Partners,
Galia holding, yes.
Galleon.
Galia
On,
holding, yes.
on whose authority?
Well, there was a joint venture agreement between them, Galia Holding and the Gambia government. So part of the agreement was for startup capital to be put in a dedicated account for the purchase of ferries.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There are still some documents you have to produce. Please make sure the document of title over ferry land, that you bring the original and,
Yes.
and a proper copy with the signature page,
Very well,
right?
very well.
And I think there are one or two issues.
Very
But you'll be coming back to give evidence, to testify on the Galia project and your other projects, of course,
Very well.
that you invested in through the
Yeah.
office of, through the office of the president.
Very well.
All right, thank you. Mr. Chairman, that's the last witness for the day.
We rise now, and we shall come back tomorrow at 10 o'clock.